They were supposed to deliver wins and championships, but all they brought is disappointment, frustration, and financial disaster. These are the worst contracts in the NBA today. The Philadelphia 76ers might have the bleakest short-term future in the league, and it's not because of bad luck, it's because of two devastating contracts. Joel Embiid and Paul George were expected to lead the Sixers to contention. Instead, they've left the team weighed down and directionless. Joel Embiid, the 2023 MVP, played only 19 games in 2025, and even when he suited up, he looked like a shell of his former self. The strength, the explosiveness, the defensive presence, it was all gone. Once feared for his agility at his size, Embiid could no longer move laterally, and teams relentlessly targeted him in pick-and-rolls. He wasn't lazy or disinterested. His body had simply broken down. Despite this, in 2024, Embiid signed a 3-year, $193 million extension that keeps him on Philly's books through 2029, when he'll be 35 and making $67 million. His knee issues are so severe that solutions being considered include radiation therapy, meniscus replacement, and bone-cutting surgery. Barring a miracle, his prime is gone, and the Sixers are stuck paying top dollar for diminishing returns. Paul George didn't fare much better. At 35, he battled groin and knee injuries throughout the 2025 season, averaging just 16 points on 43% shooting. His once elite perimeter defense has deteriorated, and he's one of the reasons Philadelphia finished with the fourth worst defense in the league. George made $49 million in 2025 and is set to earn over $50 million annually until 2028. That's a combined $100 million tied up into aging, injury-prone players who can no longer carry a team. It's a nightmare for any front office. And yet, superstars don't need to be injured to hurt a franchise's future. Just look at the Phoenix Suns. After a trip to the 2021 NBA Finals in a 64-win season in 2022, the Suns went all in. First, they traded for Kevin Durant, giving up Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and for first-round picks. It was a steep price, but understandable for a player of Durant's caliber. The real mistake came when they traded for Bradley Beal. Phoenix sent Chris Paul, Landry Shamet for first-round pick swaps and 6 second-round picks to Washington. Then, they dealt Adrian still young with Defensive Player of the Year potential in the 3-team deal that brought in Grayson Allen, Jusuf Nurkic, and others. In less than a year, the Suns built what looked like a super team on paper, but in practice, they fell apart. Phoenix couldn't find balance offensively, finishing just 10th in offensive rating. Defensively, they collapsed from 3rd in 2022 to 13th in 2025. They were swept by Minnesota in the first round, allowing 120 points in 3 of the 4 games. And they have no easy fix. Beal is at the heart of the problem. At 32, Beal made $50 million in 2025 while averaging under 20 points per game. He struggles defensively and, unlike Durant or Booker, doesn't shift a team ceiling. Yet he holds one of the worst contracts in the NBA, with a no-trade clause that gives him veto power over any deal. Only LeBron James shares that privilege. Beal is owed $110 million more through 2027, and no team is lining up to take him. Phoenix will likely trade Durant and start a rebuild without any picks. And with Beal stuck on their roster, they're not the only ones who mortgaged their future for a limited return. In 2022, the Minnesota Timberwolves made what's now viewed as one of the worst trades in recent memory. They gave up 5 players for first-round picks and a pick swap for Rudy Gobert. Granted, Gobert was already a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year and he added another in 2024, but his game has serious limitations. Gobert has averaged just 12 points per game throughout his career and offers little to no passing or spacing. In an era dominated by 3-point shooting and offensive versatility, he's one-dimensional. Even worse, the Wolves gave up Jared Vanderbilt and Walker Kessler, both of whom are arguably better defensive fits in today's game. Vanderbilt is a perimeter defensive specialist with the energy and agility to guard top scorers. Kessler, who hadn't played an NBA minute at the time of the trade, turned into a premier shot blocker and rebounder. In 2025, he averaged a point for blocks per game, led the league in offensive rebounds, and had a higher field goal percentage than Gobert. Added Malik Beasley, a lethal shooter, and the massive draft capital given up, and Minnesota's decision looks worse with every passing year. Gobert, meanwhile, is earning superstar money for role-player output, Miami thought it had. Pulled a fast one when it acquired Terry Rozier. The trade sent Kyle Lowry's expiring deal and a first-round pick to Charlotte in exchange for Rozier, who had been putting up borderline all-star numbers. But once in Miami, he cratered, averaging just 10.6 points on 39% shooting and 29% from deep. Rozier didn't play a single minute in the 2025 playoffs and is owed $26 million in 2026. That contract is now a cap-clogging liability. Portland is facing a similar double bind. Jeremy Grant was re-signed to a massive 5-year deal after strong scoring seasons, but his production dropped to just 14 points per game in 2025 on 37% shooting. He'll be earning $133 million through 2028. Adrien Ayton has also regressed. Once considered a cornerstone, he now averages just 14 points and has become nearly unplayable on defense. Rookie big man Donovan Clingan already looks like a better long-term option, and Ayton, set to earn $36 million next season, might be traded for pennies or waived outright. Then there's the Toronto Raptors, who gave out not one but two massive contracts in a short span. First came Emmanuel Quickley, a solid but unspectacular guard, who was handed $175 million over 5 years. Quickley can score and bring energy, but he hasn't shown he can run an NBA offense or be a go-to guy. Then came the Brandon Ingram extension, 3 years, $120 million signed before he ever played a game in Toronto. Ingram has all-star numbers, but he's known for empty stats, lacks defensive impact, and has battled injuries throughout his career. Toronto is now locked into 2 expensive long-term deals with uncertain upside. Finally, there's Jamal Murray. He helped Denver win the 2025 championship and averaged 21 points and 6 assists. He even had a 55-point game, the 5th highest in the league that year. But the concern with Murray is durability. Since his ACL tear in 2021, he's missed significant time every season. Despite that, he signed a 4-year, $208 million extension. That peaks at $62 million in 2029. If he stays healthy, it's a solid investment. But if the injuries continue, Denver could be saddled with a bloated contract for a player who struggles to stay on the floor and still doesn't have an all-star appearance. These contracts aren't just bad, they're handcuffs. In a league where cap space, flexibility, and timing are everything, these deals are crippling the franchises that sign them.
I'm not going to hate, but this should be an inspiration to all the little kids out there. If you average 11 points in the NBA, you can get 200.
Only 14 players in the entire NBA have made more money than Rudy Gobert during his 3-year tenure in Minnesota. Despite his limitations, the Wolves committed $43 million annually to Gobert, a decision that forced them to trade Karl Anthony Towns. Yes, Towns has defensive flaws, but in a league built around offensive firepower, letting go of arguably the greatest shooting center in NBA history is a huge gamble. And it didn't end there. Before the 2025 season, Minnesota doubled down on Gobert, signing him to a new 3-year, $110 million extension. By the time his new contract kicks in, Gobert will be 33. Combine that with the massive haul Minnesota gave up to acquire him, picks, players, and financial flexibility, and it's fair to call Gobert one of the most overpriced players in league history. Then there's a different kind of contract burden, one tied not to lack of skill, but lack of availability. Kawhi Leonard is undeniably one of the best away players in basketball. At his peak, few can match his combination of scoring, perimeter defense, and poise in clutch moments. But since joining the Clippers, Leonard has played in just 56% of the team's games. He's missed time every single season, and until the 2025 playoffs, had been injured in every postseason appearance over the last 4 years. His per-game impact is undeniable, but when you're paying superstar money for part-time availability, the value equation falls apart. Leonard might not be overpaid based on talent alone, but on a per-game basis, he's become one of the most expensive players in NBA history.
Sources tell me that Kawhi Leonard is expected to be sidelined for the start of this NBA season.
Kawhi Leonard will be sidelined indefinitely to start the season.
Kawhi Leonard made $49 million in 2025, and he's set to earn another $50 million in both 2026 and 2027. That kind of salary wouldn't raise eyebrows if Kawhi were consistently available. But when you divide his total earnings by the number of games he's played for the Clippers, it comes out to staggering $730,000 per game for any franchise trying to build a contender. That's an unsustainable price to pay, and it's why Leonard's deal ranks among the worst contracts in the NBA. But Kawhi isn't the only future Hall of Famer on an inflated deal. Even before his devastating injury, Damian Lillard's contract was tough to justify at this stage of his career. Sure, the numbers still look great: 25 points and 7 assists per game on solid efficiency. His pick-and-roll chemistry with Giannis was electric, one of the most unstoppable actions in the league. And while Dame has never been known as a lockdown defender, he's shown more effort on that end with the Bucks than he did in Portland, where he carried a much heavier offensive load. Still, Milwaukee didn't look dominant, even with a healthy Lillard. And then came the turning point. On April 27th, Lillard tore his Achilles injury that will keep him out for the entire 2026 season, when he'll be making $58 million. And with Lillard now 35 years old, holding a $63 million player option for 2027 that he'll almost certainly exercise, the Bucks are stuck. Their best option may be to trade Giannis and hit reset, because Dame time has come to a complete stop. Now, it's easy to identify bad contracts when the names are big and the salaries are enormous. But what about role players who can't even fulfill their limited responsibilities? Take Patrick Williams in Chicago. On paper, he checks every box: a 6 feet 7 inches wing with a 7-foot wingspan, capable of hitting 40% of his threes. He looks like a coach's dream, but in reality, Williams has failed to develop beyond his rookie year. Defensively, he has all the tools, but lacks focus. He gets caught ball watching, blown by in one-on-one matchups, and constantly loses track of his man. Offensively, he's just as passive, rather than attacking the gaps or cutting to open space. Williams camps in the corner, waiting for someone else to create. He's also an average rebounder and a non-factor as a playmaker. Once he gets the ball, it's usually the end of the possession, because he doesn't move it, doesn't drive, and doesn't draw fouls. The Bulls gave him a sizable contract, hoping for upside, but at this point, it looks like they paid for potential that may never come.
But then the next time he comes down, grabs the ball, and then it's almost like paralysis by analysis. And then you're like, damn it, son. Now just pass it ahead, because now you're letting valuable time go off the shot clock.
He's not physical.
He's not physical enough, and at times, he's practically invisible on the court, just doing cardio, leaving no imprint on the game. Patrick Williams' numbers in his 5th season are nearly identical to his rookie year, with one crucial difference: his shot has abandoned him in his first 4 seasons. He at least provided some floor spacing, shooting over 41% from deep. But in 2025, Williams' offensive efficiency cratered. He shot just 39% from the field and 35% from 3. That would be disappointing on a rookie contract. But before the 2025 season, Williams signed a 5-year, $90 million extension, and for the Bulls, it already looks like a disaster. Williams is starting to resemble the type of player who doesn't love the game, just someone who chased a bag and checked out the moment he secured it. And he's not the only one. Much like Williams, the Jew Murray took a sharp dive after getting paid. In 2022, while still with the Spurs, Murray was an all-star, led the league in steals, and looked like an elite two-way guard. San Antonio, however, saw through the illusion. They sold high, trading him to Atlanta for a bundle of picks and fully committing to their tank for Victor Wembanyama. The Hawks had dreams of building the best backcourt in the league, pairing Murray's defense with Trae Young's offensive wizardry, but it never worked. While Murray kept scoring 20 points per game, his defensive impact vanished, and he never meshed with Trae. Eventually, Atlanta bailed, trading him to the Pelicans, who somehow gave up Dyson Daniels and the first-round picks to make it happen. That trade looks worse by the day. Daniels became one of the best defenders in the league, leading the NBA in steals per game in 2025. His offense has also improved steadily. Meanwhile, Murray completely fell off. He shot just 39% from the field and a miserable 30% from 3 in New Orleans. And then came the breaking point and Achilles tear, the most dreaded injury in basketball. Now Murray has 3 years and $95 million left on his deal, and the Pelicans may be stuck with the shell of a player. This is a trade that can haunt New Orleans for years. But they're not the only ones making regrettable moves. In 2024, the Miami Heat made a puzzling deal for Terry Rozier. At the time, Rozier was putting up near all-star numbers in Charlotte: 20 points, 5 assists per game. The cost wasn't huge, Kyle Lowry's expiring contract and a first-round pick. But looking back, even that seems like a heist for the Hornets. Rozier's production fell off a cliff in Miami. In 2025, he averaged just 10.6 points per game, shot an abysmal 39% from the field, and just 29% from three. It became clear Rozier is a player who thrives on bad teams with no structure. The moment he had to contribute to winning basketball, he disappeared.
No matter how you slice it, Terry Rozier is making it increasingly difficult to ignore just how bad he's been. And we're at the point where this nightmare season for him has reached rock bottom.
Scary Terry has been almost unplayable at times. In fact, Eric Spoelstra didn't even put him on the floor during the 2025 playoffs. Rozier completely failed to meet expectations in Miami, while collecting $25 million for the year with another $26 million still owed in 2026. He went from a high-volume scorer in Charlotte to a liability in a winning system. Miami paid for production and got a disappearing act. Another player who followed the classic post-payday drop-off is Jerami Grant. He earned $27 million in 2025 and is set to pocket another $133 million through 2028. That's a massive number for a player who was once known as a lockdown defender and reliable shooter to traits. That seemed to have vanished from his game. In his first 2 years in Portland, Grant averaged over 20 points per game with a solid 53% effective field goal percentage. But in 2025, the bottom fell out. He dropped to just 14 points per game and shot a brutal 37% from the field. Grant is now over 31, locked into 4 more seasons of a declining contract and essentially untradeable. And unfortunately for Portland, he's not the only one. Adrian wants the #1 overall pick and a key contributor to a finals team in Phoenix, has been trending in the wrong direction for years. The man who once dubbed himself dominating now struggles to dominate anything. In 2025, he averaged just 14 points per game, provided middling defense, and often looked disengaged on both ends of the floor. Meanwhile, rookie Donovan Clingan showed more promise at center, making Ayton's hefty contract even harder to swallow. Ayton was the highest paid player on the Blazers this season at $34 million, and while he has just 1 year left at $36 million, for 2026, his lack of production makes even that feel like dead weight. A trade feels inevitable, though it's hard to say what Portland could get back out as bad as that is. The future looks far brighter in Portland than it does in Toronto. The Raptors made not one, but 2 questionable long-term bets. The first, imminent. Quickly, New York shipped him out because they didn't want to pay him, and Toronto did the opposite, handing him a massive 5-year, $175 million extension. Now, Quickly is a talented player, fast, crafty, and capable of catching fire in a heartbeat, but that kind of profile is typically best suited to a 6-man microwave role. In New York, he started just 27 games out of 253. Toronto saw more and paid him like a borderline all-star, but so far, the results haven't matched the paycheck. Quickly's stats have only marginally improved, and his efficiency has dropped. Worse yet, he still hasn't shown that he can reliably run an offense as a full-time point guard. Right now, the Raptors are paying elite money for average results, and that's always a recipe for long-term regret.
Is he a top-notch facilitator? We haven't really seen that. Is he a bucket getter? He could be, but he doesn't look for his own shot.
But as if the Raptors hadn't learned their lesson with Quickly, they went and did it again, this time with Brandon Ingram. In 2025, Ingram was in the final year of his deal, and the Pelicans spent the entire season trying to trade him. No, one bit. That is, until Toronto came along and handed him a 3-year, $120 million contract before he even played a single game for them. On paper, Ingram looks like a star. He's a true triple threat, can shoot, pass, and dribble. During his 6 seasons in New Orleans, he averaged a respectable 23 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. But that's where the illusion ends. Ingram's numbers are often empty calories, big stats on bad teams with little to show for it. And with his lengthy injury history and body language that screams, "I care more about my numbers than wins," the vibes in Toronto could be frostier than the weather. Speaking of Canadians, let's talk about Jamal Murray, whose dynamic partnership with Nikola Jokic helped Denver win the NBA championship in 2025. Murray put together another solid year, 21 points, 6 assists, 47% from the field, and 39% from deep, and when he's locked in, he looked like the best point guard in the league. His 55-point explosion against Portland was the 5th highest single-game scoring performance of the entire 2025 season. But Murray's issue isn't talent, it's availability. Over the last 5 seasons, Murray has battled a slew of injuries, including a torn ACL that cost him the entire 2020 season. Despite that, in September 2024, Denver gave him a 4-year, $128 million extension that kicks in next season and climbs to $62 million in 2029. If Murray stays healthy, the contract makes sense. His chemistry with Jokic is real, and his playoff performances speak for themselves. But that's a big if. Murray has never been an all-star, and he's never averaged more than 21 points per game. So while the ceiling is high, the floor is dangerously low, especially for a player who's always one tweak or strain away from another long rehab.
When is he going to raise his level of play to all-star level? We're not even talking all-NBA, just all-star level, and help Jokic out. He's averaging about 17 points right now.